you know,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
anything.
grief can be anything,
Yeah,
right?
it
And we
can.
just we like to just well, it's not that we like. When we talk about it, we always talk about loss of a person. But I'm always going down the whole list. And then, when you've processed grief with God, like at some moment, I'm just like, every single thing in this broken world gives us grief, in the losses, the job loss, the loss of dreams, and I've talked about this stuff over and over,
Mhm.
but there's so many things, but we may not be calling it grief,
Right.
right? Loss of a relationship, divorce, just so much. Hi, guys. This is Lisa with Good Grief on YouTube. And tonight we're going to chat about grief like we always do. We have Dawn joining us as a special guest. I've been doing ministry with Dawn for, I would say, about 4 years plus. There's just been a lot of things that we've been able to talk about and chat out. She does run the grief group at Celebrate Recovery. I'd like to introduce you to her. Dawn?
Hi. Thanks, Lisa. There's a lot about grief that fills my life right now. It's not really a story that I have asked for. However, it's an opportunity in ministry, like Lisa was saying,
Hmm.
an opportunity to serve the Lord in different ways.
We're conduit, that we do it for God's glory. We didn't ask for the grief. We didn't ever want these things to happen in our life that produced loss. But, once we were there, God met us. And so you want to just tell us, start at the very beginning, Dawn, and just share with us what that experience was.
Sure. So, what really drove me to celebrate recovery was the time in my life as a young girl that my parents went through a divorce. And that meant separation, which started grief process, because what I had before, what I thought was a good, solid home wasn't a solid home anymore. It was split in two and it was very, very toxic, very dramatic.
Did you ever see that stuff before? Like, how old were you again?
9.
So did you just saw everything stable, secure? You never saw any sort of fractures in the relationship, and then all of a sudden you get this news? Is that how that worked?
There was some tension, you could feel it in the house. There was obvious tension
Mm.
with some of the behaviors. They tried to hide it from us, but it really overflowed into the whole house, took over sometimes.
Right. Just because there's tension on the parents. Going through that process, that's when you're first experiencing loss. We don't know as kids what we're grieving, so just share a little bit about that, how that went. Was it a blended, separate households, obviously, or how did that work?
It was separate households and it got messy. The court process was long. We were back and forth between parents. There was several sudden moves
Hmm.
that reacted to because nobody would talk about. Like, nobody would say, "Well, this is what's going on." It would just be a sudden move, like I was yanked out of school and, sent to Phoenix, and I didn't know what was going on. My parents didn't really discuss a lot with us. We put together the pieces. Yeah, they're splitting up. Okay, divorce. That was rough. That was a rough word back in the 70s.
Yeah.
I really didn't know that many people in our town, in my school, whose parents were divorced.
Yeah, so you'd make friends and you'd feel like you were situated, and then you'd come home from school and then you're going in a different route, but nobody's telling you what's going on. You're really just kind of flailing around with what the adults are deciding.
Exactly. We didn't,
Mm.
there was no sit down and say, "Hey, how do you feel about this?"
So and you had siblings? How many siblings?
At the time I had 2 brothers,
Okay.
so there was 3 of us involved.
So, what I've learned is when I hear these stories, the siblings actually bond tighter because of the chaos that's happening around them. Is that what happened in your situation?
Kind of. It was my older brother and I
Mhm.
that really clung to each other because they split us up, and my younger brother was with my mom.
Mhm.
And us older 2 were with my dad,
Okay.
but we clung to each other tightly. We still do. I mean, we're
Mhm.
pretty close.
I just hear that, like, okay, it was me and my brother, me and my sister. We bound together just while we were going through all this turmoil. So what did that look like? What did that look like fast forward, like teenage years? What was going on?
So into the teenage years, and both of my parents had remarried, and those choices really affected us.
Mhm.
There was a lot of turmoil on different levels there.
Well, now you have 2 other adults in with the adults that these are their children, and then you have other people speaking into that, and the dynamics can be pretty unhealthy, right?
They sure can.
Mhm.
There was a lot there because my mom had 3 more children with her second husband, and my dad married someone with 3 children, so it was messy and loud.
Mhm. So you're grieving a lot. Things are moving pretty quickly. It's kind of a blur. Things also change quickly. So just experiencing that loss and type of abandonment that was a huge deal. Then trying to acclimate to 2 new families because everybody's blended now. And then you got the adult problems that are in there too. It doesn't sound like it was a smooth transition. Did that just put you like in rebellion, or what did that do? Were you just an overachiever in school? What did that do to you there in that time frame?
Well, I really, dove into the structure of school, so I
Mm,
excelled. I was a straight A student on the
mhm,
track team. I wrote for the school paper. I took photos for the school paper. Anything to keep me at school and out of the house is basically what I did. Because
mm.
there was a lot of structure and it was very predictable at school. Like I knew what I was going to do one minute to the next, but at home it was totally different, very chaotic, lots of personalities involved.
Well, you become hyper vigilant when you're in an unsafe environment. Then you learn as a kid, like, I better read everybody because I want to know if I'm going to get in trouble, if somebody's going to have too much emotion, like that I really didn't even do anything to deserve that type of stuff. Was that happening?
Yeah, there was a lot of that. My stepmother and I really didn't see eye to eye, I guess it is. We didn't
Mhm,
fight. It was just she fought with me. She
mhm,
did everything that she could to get me out of the house and get me
mhm.
away from my dad. And
You and your dad were close?
I was my dad's only girl.
Oh, yeah?
So
Yeah,
daddy's
so
little
you were kinda
girl.
like competition to an unhealthy person, right?
Yes.
Instead of embracing, and just knowing, like, there could just be goodness from this, they choose the unhealthy path because they probably don't even know any better. That was difficult. So let's get to young adulthood. Like, your family stays blended and everybody stays in the family, like, unit, or does anybody, even though they're in separate households, how does that work? Like, you're with your mom and dad all the way through up to young adulthood?
No.
Okay.
No. There was a time when I was a sophomore that the circumstances that my stepmother had created in her brain affected me very deeply. And I ended up out of the house. I was put into a drug rehab.
Did you have a drug problem?
No, it wasn't my problem. It was prescription drugs were very prevalent in my
Okay.
dad and stepmom's home. That was like
That might have
the
been
norm.
one of the problems.
It was a big problem,
Yeah.
but I was the victim of somebody stealing drugs from the other,
Mm. Between the
and
parents or
between the
the
parents, a bottle of prescription meds ended up missing. I think they were
so you were the
pain pills.
scapegoat.
I was a scapegoat, and
Mm.
so I ended up in drug rehab in another city in Phoenix. I lived south of Phoenix at the time.
So you just got shipped off to that's like, she did it. She's the one that took them because whoever didn't wanna fess up, and plus it could get rid of you, right?
Correct.
Out of the house. So I can kind of guess, who reported that false thing. So then you're on your way to drug rehab, do not have a drug problem, and it's being pinned on you. Okay, so tell me what was going on there. Like when you got there, like are you just in just shock and overwhelm and what the heck's happening?
For sure. True to the family story, I was never told anything. They said they packed some of my clothes in a suitcase and took me to Phoenix, took me to St. Joseph's Hospital. They had a convalescent unit.
Mhm.
And I guess I had a doctor at that time, a psychiatrist they assigned to me. and they dropped me off, and I said, "Wait, I don't belong here.
Like,
Talk
that's
to
what they
me."
all say.
Right?
Yeah.
But they did, they drug tested me often. They went through my suitcase, tore the lining out of it, checked for whatever they could find, and there was nothing there. It wasn't my problem. I was a straight A student.
You're already in a state of loss since very young. So this is where it just got like, I mean, this has turned up way too high. This is not normal, you know? So I can see like right here, the one thing that was steady in your life got ripped from you and it was all under false pretense. So that had to just be heartbreaking. How did you even deal with that? How did you cope with that? Were you a believer at this time?
No, I mean,
Okay.
I knew who Jesus was. The good thing about my stepmother is she made us go to church, which, there is good in all darkness, and that was the good that came out of it because it sparked something in me to where I was like, "Oh, there's something here because I feel this peace that
Mm.
I haven't felt anywhere else." I filed that away. Once I got to Phoenix, I mean, and put into the hospital, that was it. I mean, I was put up for adoption. My
So you're how old at this time?
I'm 15.
You're 15 and they put you into the system.
They put me into the
You're a
system.
foster child.
Yes.
Goodness. And an older aged foster child. That's always rough. Just even the 8-year-olds, I've heard stories of I was 8 years old and nobody wanted to adopt me. And I'm like 8 years old and you're 15, 3 years shy from being a legal adult. So how do you slug this out? How does this go? Does a family bring you into their home? Do your grandparents come and get you?
My father told me that my mother nor
Mm-mm.
my grandmother wanted me, but I know that that's not true, that things would have looked different. But being that he had full custody of me and everything, it was his decision to do whatever he wanted to do, I guess.
Now, I mean, I have to ask this question. Obviously, you do work with the Lord, like, and people that have hurt you growing up, you forgive them. Is he still here on this earth and you're talking and you've gotten through this?
No, no,
Mm.
he's since passed from his prescription drug abuse. However, we did have a time of reconciliation and
Okay. Praise Jesus.
rebuilding. Yes, it was very important, and the Lord knew that I needed that, so he gave that as a gift to me.
And then what about your mom? So here's where losing people start. Now your dad has passed. Is your mom, is she living?
Yes, she's living. She's here in the same city.
Okay. And how is that relationship these days?
That relationship is okay. I mean, we've been able to talk through a lot of things. She had a stroke a while back when she was going through chemo for breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And we really thought we were going to lose her. And so it kind of like brought the family closer together
Oh,
where we rallied around her. And she is a survivor. She's clean. She's
oh, good.
like in her mid 80s and about that ornery too. But yeah, we have a relationship.
Yeah. But I mean, that just, I mean, going back to, this whole, podcast and what we talk about here is the loss and the grief part. And I know right now we're just talking about young childhood, adulthood. So what transpires, move on in life, right? I don't know if you were like me. I just kind of stuffed things down and I just kept on going. So I didn't really address anything. I just like you was going to be an overachiever. I didn't really do the schooling route, but in my work I was going to excel. So even if I was the GED girl, I was going to be as far as I could go. And so, and I got a lot of satisfaction out of that. But then I learned that all this stuff that I grieved from very young, was going to impact me in some way later. And it was going to bubble up somewhere. That's what happened. Kind of explain, that like what happened in your young adult life. I guess we would be in your young adult life, and where Jesus met you. And
So in my young adult life, after I got out of the drug rehab, they released me actually to my dad. So
okay.
even though I had been in foster care and visited by a couple families
Mm,
that wanted to adopt me, which is rare, but there were two different families that came and visited me,
mm,
then they decided that it wasn't going to work. So my dad had to come and get me. He took me to my mom's, which was miles away in Arizona, and dropped us off, me and my older brother, said we were just gonna be there for the summer, but he didn't come back and get us.
So you're just picking up this whole thing of like, trust nobody's words.
Exactly.
Yeah. People like can say one thing, but then they do something completely opposite. And so I know in that kind of scenario, when you're raised in that, you're a truth, you end up being a truth seeker. You just want people to tell you straight. It doesn't matter if it's good, bad, and different. Just tell me straight. I can deal with it. You know what I mean? And so you just learn to be that way because that's what you would want, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you don't force things like just why fabricate, anything. So I know that that was definitely a difficult thing because it just feels like it was like, okay, just passing, okay, you need to go here, you need to go there. We don't, it's like never built the room for you, but yet they brought you here into this world. And that's sad. That's always just, I mean, my father, I never knew my father. I just wondered where he went. Like, that started the abandonment. That started that worth, in me. I'm sure that, you went through that, like just questioning, and our logic brain tells us like, no, we're okay. We're a good person, but then the outer external stuff says, well, if we're so good, then how come everybody left type of thing.
Right. And then, yeah, it took me a while. I dealt with self worth. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
because I kept getting thrown around like trash, called
Sorry.
names that I could never even imagine for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like you said, I saw the good in me. I was not a bad teenager. I,
Yeah, you were able to cohesively work with the kids at school, right? If you were involved, I mean, you had the team spirit and all that stuff. So you could see yourself one way. You're like, I can't be that bad. I managed to do these things. I managed to get good grades. I managed to write for the paper. People allow me to do these things, even though, I'm just a kid. So yeah, I can get that because the worth thing, just when other people are telling your worth is a big deal. But the cool thing is God intervenes there and he's like, no, 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 I'm going to tell you exactly what your worth is. And that's when it starts getting beautiful. Just tell me when that relationship started deepening, because I know we have more to talk about, on grief. You went through a lot of loss before loss, like in grief. Like it's still called grief, but I'm saying it was just different types of losses before it was people, right?
right.
I mean, there was a separation, but they were still here, present, which sometimes I think is, that's even worse, right? You're like, man, like, I mean, my family was like 20 minutes away from me, So, and it was both, I wasn't being able to be accessed. Either. So, yeah, I mean, I think we just learned to be grace giving and control what we can control, which is our response and our environment, right? I know that I just always moved myself to just be in a safe environment, and I've been working on that for years. I mean, do you feel like that?
Sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I would, so back to the question about the Lord.
Mhm.
Like in my early teens, I really started diving into Bible study and to what does this mean?
Mhm.
What am I seeing?
Mhm.
I really just drew close to the Lord for a while.
And he met you.
He met me, well, he
Mhm.
knew that I was going to need him, you know,
Right.
because later, I was young and I was on my own. I wasn't even 18 yet,
Mhm.
and trying to navigate the world and trying to, I had to quit school so I could support myself.
You didn't have a big toolbox like to work from, right?
I did not.
So tough. So what transpired there? Like, is that where community and the church helped, or it was just grit? I mean, because sometimes, Dawn, it's just straight grit.
I tried to seek help from the church, but the dynamics of the situation, being that I was so young,
Mm.
they really it was not a good experience. I got zero help from them. So then it was like, okay, well, just no support, like no moral
Because
support
you were young? I don't.
because I was young and I was on my own, was trying to navigate, and all I got was judgment and like, this is a messy situation. We don't even want to get involved in it. But it just
Goodness.
drove me to some really, it's almost toxic independence,
Right.
you know?
Total self-reliance.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, "You know what? I'm gonna stay right here in this box because I know what I'm saying, what I'm doing, what I'm promising myself, know completely where I'm going. I got some goals out there. The Bible says that, right? Like people will fail you, and it sounds like that's what happened. And then you do become one, you're hyper vigilant and super self sufficient. You've been forced into that, right? I mean, yeah, you're like, I'm gonna take care of myself because it doesn't seem like anybody else is.
And
Mm,
that was a fact.
yeah.
I like I said, I had to work and I quit school and
Mm,
support myself, and that's what I did.
mhm. Now along this journey, did you get married or?
That was later. Like,
Mhm,
uh, I did get married,
mhm.
and this is after like I had turned my back on the Lord. I'm just gonna live however I want to live because
Okay, so let me stop you right there. So you were saying you dove into scripture, you were a
yes.
young teen, and then you turned your back on him. You just didn't, you learned enough, and then was it like a gradual thing or?
No, it was pretty sudden because I got like when I was experiencing the hurt from them not offering me any moral support, or, they didn't want to touch this messy
The
situation that
church.
I was in.
The
Yes.
church hurt you. Oh
Yes, it was
goodness.
definitely church hurt. And
So sad.
so then I was like, fine, then I'm just going to do this on my own. But the
Mhm.
Lord was always with me. I always, always, always felt him with me since a very young age.
That's awesome.
I don't know where that came from. Um,
Well, that came from you being his precious daughter. When we're mistreated in life, he does show up. There's a protection that follows us. So even though we go through things and we have very deep valleys and maybe some mountaintops, he's always there, even if we haven't professed him yet. That's what happened to me. Like, I mean, I was running the other way. But then I look back and I was like, he had his hand of protection over me the whole time. So
yeah,
it wasn't like life was grand and everything was perfect. It was just a steady protection that I was going to stay on this earth until he had me do his purpose and his will. So it sounds like that's what you went through, right?
it was. I mean, I
Mhm.
always felt him when I was very young. My
Mhm.
grandma was teaching me to sew, and I had sewed a pillow, and it said, God made me. And she tore it up and told me that that was filth.
Wait, did you choose the pattern?
Yeah,
Like
I made it.
you put the words there.
Uh-huh.
Wow, I thought it was like an applique or something.
I just sewed a pillow, and then I made the words, God made me. And she was just so angry about that. And so,
Oh goodness.
that's pretty anti-churched, anti everything
Yeah.
from my
That's
grandmother, who was a big influence in my life for a long time, especially after my parents split up. So I didn't know what I did wrong, but that I was young and I knew at that point who he was and that he was
thank
foundational, and he
goodness.
just kept building on that, from those felt boards in Sunday school.
Mhm.
This is Jesus. He just kept building on it and just giving me little tastes of peace of him, you know.
Mhm.
This my peace I give you, right? So
Right.
he would
It's like we would no understanding. And that's what I always say, like people with tumultuous lives that carry all that trauma later when you're digging into other stuff that's really not healthy for you, you're just looking for peace. And as women, we're looking for safety, peace, both of those things.
I wasn't like at the time, I wasn't really living for the Lord at all. I
It was like an
trying to
existence.
survive, but
You
also like living a real party lifestyle.
mhm.
And so I got married in my early 20s,
Mhm.
and that didn't last very long because,
That's more grief.
yeah, it did. Yeah, there was a lot of hurt before we got married. There was some, cheating in the relationship. And I set about to basically conquer rather than have a healthy relationship. So
Oh, it became a war?
it became more of like, well,
Like conquer
since he cheated on me, then I was going to conquer him and I was going to get him to marry me.
that? Okay, I
And
understand.
then all that toxicity and everything just, yeah, the relationship.
Snowballed and came into the relationship.
Yeah, so then I just left where I was in central Arizona and moved down here because you can run from your problems, and just tried to survive again, working and overachieving and long hours and high
Mm.
paid. And I mean, my 20s were a lot of fun, but without the Lord,
Fun without boundaries.
fun without boundaries. It was just
Mhm.
like, I made a lot of money. I drove a nice car. I had
Worldly stuff.
worldly stuff and, all that entails with that party lifestyle. And I was miserable.
Mhm.
A friend of mine took a picture of me at a club and she's like, "Look, your eyes are dead."
Ooh,
Mm,
that was harsh.
that was a harsh truth, but I knew it. That's how I felt. That's how I felt. I
Does
was
that mean you were,
seeking.
like, in the club? Were you drinking? Like, did you have a vice?
Yeah, we like to drink. I mean, we drank a
Mhm.
lot because that's what you did. You just went
Right.
out and you drank and went home and changed clothes and went out to the clubs and
Okay. Yeah, I know that life.
yeah. So that's what we did.
We were really good, like, at it, like, I mean, I don't wanna romanticize it, but, you know, I'm like, yeah, I could get hit my head could hit the pillow at 5:30 AM, and I would be at work at 7 AM. So, just to get, like, little bit of shut-eye, I'm just glad that God saved me from that recklessness, landed me on, solid ground. Because like you, like that, I look back and I'm like, I was living really, really dark.
Yep.
Mhm.
And I felt it and it showed.
Mhm. Did you ever miss God during these times? Or were you just, like,
I
just
was
totally running the other way, not even paying attention?
No, I was seeking that peace
That you remembered.
that I remembered,
Mhm.
and so I kept seeking it in other things that I never found. So,
Right.
like, I ended up married again, and,
Mm.
we had our son,
Mhm.
and when I had my son, I was like, "Boy," I'm like, "I have to raise him.
Like, I have to settle down
I
now.
have to raise him to know Jesus. I just have
Oh,
to.
yeah.
That's my responsibility." Because
Mhm.
in all the tumultuousness, I didn't understand unconditional love.
Right.
And
Everything was conditional.
everything.
Mm.
So when I had my son, it was like the Lord's gift to me. He's like, "This is how I love you."
Mhm.
That's gonna make me tear up, but this is how I love you. I love you unconditionally, like more than you love your son. I got back into church. I rededicated my life.
So you're like, "I'm doing this right." Like, people did it wrong. Like, you're a cycle breaker, right? So, people did it wrong with me, but I'm gonna do this right.
Exactly.
Okay.
I'm gonna try. I'm gonna do my
Yeah, we're
best.
gonna do our best, right?
Because I was messy, messy. I
Mhm.
still had, the trauma and everything that I really didn't deal with, and so it would come
Mhm.
out in different areas. But I
Mhm.
always remained that overachiever and that, perfectionist and just striving until I could strive no more.
Yeah, but sometimes in the sacrifice of that, we sacrifice a lot.
We do. We do.
And especially with our children. I mean, I was working crazy hours too when my kids were young. And now I'm like, wow, I don't do that anymore. Why didn't I do that then? But then I have to think, well, I wanted to give them the best life possible.
Mm,
Right. And that meant working more, So I get that. I do want to talk about your son. Are you okay with that?
for sure.
Yeah.
He was a special guy. I mean, I was really blessed when he was born. Like I said, he was a gift. He showed me, taught me more about myself than I mean anybody could. It was like reading a book sometimes.
Reading like he could read you like a book or
It was like looking at him
like a
and
mirror?
it was like a mirror.
Mm. Sometimes when the kids, like then I was obviously before recovery, but sometimes those one-liners that they tell us, or just like the comments they come up and you're like, yeah, I think okay, I'm gonna listen to that, you know? And so I just know that yeah, kids are a super blessing like in our lives. I'd like to just chat about that and just I know it's not easy.
Yeah, but not much has been, right? So
No.
he was diagnosed young, like when he was in the second grade with a mental illness, an unspecified mood disorder and ADHD, which had its own challenges. I mean, that
Mhm.
was a lot because no fault of his own. My husband and my son's father ended up leaving when Ben was very young. And so then it left me to raise Ben and it was very difficult. It was like time consuming trying,
So now you're a single mom?
single mom of a special needs child.
This is like you're just building the plane as you're flying it. Like you don't have a good solid blueprint.
They don't come with books. They
I
don't come
know,
with
but you didn't
blueprints.
even have the examples, right?
No, I had nothing. I had never, like, dealt with anybody with a mental illness that I had to, like, parent and to nurture.
Mhm.
So there was, I had a big team involved. I had a psychiatrist, his psychologist, his teachers, like we could go on, his coaches, they just said, here's some meds and keep him busy.
Yeah, they
And,
do that.
and this is what you can expect later. He's going to abuse drugs. I mean,
But I mean, I'm probably not one to talk about that, but these, Concerta and Adderall and
mhm,
all that, I mean, that's a whole like rabbit hole,
yes.
And ADHD, I do understand that. I have a daughter with ADHD, and I do understand that it's medicate, medicate, medicate.
Mhm.
And then for me, I was like, when your child is medicated, their whole personality changes, right? That's what I experienced. And then she felt trapped, and, it just depended on what medicine, they prescribed. And, I don't know. I'm kind of getting into it, but sometimes that line between the medical professionals and the school gets really blurry, and, they're not the, ones prescribing it, but then yet they're like, "Give them more."
Well, we were told because I didn't want to medicate him, and they're like, you either medicate him or you don't bring him back to school.
Mhm.
And so they, like, kind of pushed me into a corner, and I was like, "Well, my concern is that he's going to become addicted. These are very strong substances, that he's gonna be addicted to these ADHD medicines." They're like, "Oh, but they're out of his system at the end of every day," and, he took meds for a long time until, like, from 2nd grade till he was, like,
Mhm.
16, he took an ADHD med on top of antipsychotics.
Did you have moments where you just like, "There's my son." Like, you see him for just who he is without this other affliction, right? So he has 2 going on, but you're like, "That's the kid that I know." Like, did that happen?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, because
Mhm.
like I said, it was just us.
Yeah.
So we spent a lot of time together and a lot of time on the field. And, I could pretty much tell who showed up,
Mhm.
and then those sweet little moments, because his soul was so sweet, so compassionate, so
Mm.
full of love for others.
You would just see those moments too.
And it would just make you smile, and he was so funny, so funny. When he wasn't funny, I knew he was struggling.
The comedy left.
Yeah.
Yeah. That must have been, was he in a place where he would be like, "Mom, I struggle with this. Like, I know I'm struggling." Like, did he get to that place?
He had a hard time, like, I would talk to him, and then I would take him to counseling and stuff, and,
Mhm.
so he could talk without having to talk to me. We went to a lot of counseling.
Mhm. So you got a lot of the support. I mean, you did as much as you could with
Yeah.
the resources out there, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So as he grew older, did that start to materialize where whatever the medications he was putting on started showing up the way that they said?
Well, what happened was my dad died suddenly from effects of prescription drug abuse, and he was a solid in my son's life, like, he was a true solid.
Oh,
Those 2
and I
were
love it when that happens because they weren't that for you,
mhm.
but then they became that for the child.
Yeah, he divorced his wife or they got
Mhm,
divorced,
mhm.
and he started, like, really coming around and just spending time with us and wanting to be part of our lives and, cautious at first, trying to figure that relationship out, but it ended up to be this beautiful relationship, and the family, we rebuilt the family, got everybody together.
Oh, that's awesome.
Be so obnoxious. We go on family vacations together, but that was, purposeful so that he could build relationships with his grandchildren and rebuild the relationships with his own children.
Mhm.
And then having him pass away suddenly really took Ben into a dark, dark, dark place. And he was already struggling, but then he started using, like, really hard substances, and
Like, not prescription, like, he would just get it from wherever?
yeah, he would use meth and, heroin.
Wow.
And so that was ugly, that thing, that whole time, it was, like, brought out the worst of absolutely everything in me,
Mhm. To
trying
try
to
and control, to try well,
control.
help. We were trying to help, but then the person that's in it, they feel like it's control,
Yeah.
but then you have other elements in this too that are at play as well.
Yeah, like, as he kept getting older, kept struggling, and he ended up being incarcerated for drug possession when he
Mm,
was 18 years old,
mhm.
and that was just horrible. He was in prison at 18,
Prison.
and so he came back with, PTSD and some ink all over.
He had a lot of
He had a
tattoos.
lot of tattoos. He had
Mhm.
tattoos before he was 18. That's a different story, but yeah, so he came back a very different person, and I could just see in his eyes something died inside, when he was in prison. And then he just got out and he just kept using and ended up going back.
So how long did this cycle go on?
He was in prison 3 times, so it just kept going, and he's like, "I'm gonna be clean this time, I'm gonna,"
Mhm.
and then he'd hit the meth, and then he'd find something to calm himself down, and then he really started struggling. He was in the hospital, I would say, probably 10 times for suicidal ideations,
Mm.
and, just he would be in a inpatient for 10 days at a time.
He check himself in?
He would.
Okay, so it's like that part of him, it's like, "I need to go seek help."
Yeah, and he would, and when he would come out, he'd have, like, goals and he'd have
Course, clarity.
very yeah, clarity, and it was fun to spend time with him when he was sober. It wasn't always like he had the down spirals. There was a lot of,
Up.
long-term sobriety and just good times, that we had. It was just that it was brutal on him because with felonies on his account on
Mhm.
his record, it wasn't really easy to get a job, and then it was
Just
like,
lift up.
"No, you're no good," That's what he
Mhm.
just kept getting all that negative, talk to him that he
Mhm.
wasn't worthy of anything. He was at home with me sober, and, I was going to, Israel. I was gonna take
Mhm.
a trip to Israel with the church, and, this was gonna be the 2nd trip. I had gone earlier, but, while I was preparing to leave, he went into a program, a sober living program,
Mm.
and,
He checked himself in again?
he went there on purpose,
Okay.
sober living program on purpose. I mean, that was the plan, and so he was waiting for housing or a group home or something from with his SMI people,
Mhm.
that were his case managers, and so they had a course of treatment and a course of, like, plans for the future for him.
Mhm.
So he went there, and, I went to Israel,
Mhm.
and then he ended up on the street. They kicked him out of the sober living program because he would not take a drug test.
Mhm.
So he was on the street, and then he got arrested and charged with drug possession,
Mm.
and at that time, he was incarcerated.
Okay.
And so I was like, "Okay, Lord, well, you got this, you're taking care of him while I'm gone." This was the day before I left,
Mhm.
and, then it was like we were, I don't know, 4 or 5 days into the trip, and I got a call that said that he had passed away in his sleep. He just didn't wake up. It was non-responsive. You wake up non-responsive. But it was so confusing because here I was in my most favorite place in the whole wide world. I love being at the Sea of Galilee, and we were there, and I
Mhm.
was with the church, and, I got this call, right?
Mm.
And so I couldn't even imagine if I would have been at home, I would have been alone. I would have not had any support around me at the time.
Right.
And, but yet the Lord knew what was gonna happen, so he, like, made it as soft as possible by putting me with 40 members of the church and just really he was in so many details, I can't even tell you.
There's this stuff. Well, previously the church wasn't there, and then get into this, and the church is very there, right? You guys are in at the Sea of Galilee?
Yeah, we were at the Sea of Galilee, and
I mean, isn't this just this news is surreal? Like, those are the phone calls, like, I mean, I've heard it come in text, I don't know why text, but The phone calls are surreal, like, you don't expect that.
You know,
No way.
no, it wasn't the call that I expected because I had left the Lord in charge when I left,
Mhm.
in my, my way would have been different, but the Lord's like, "Hey, I'm gonna protect you over here. I got you." And
Mhm.
I'm taking him home, and I
Mhm.
really think that the Lord took him home to protect him from something, to protect him maybe from future more struggling,
Mm.
I
So
don't know.
so was it a opioid? I mean, you gave, like, some of the drugs that he took, but was it a opioid thing, or, like, what did they say it was?
He just passed away in his sleep, and
It
they
was just completely
they
natural.
no, I mean, they
Oh,
were treating him they were giving him meds that they use to detox
okay.
people
Well, yeah,
in the
detox
jail.
is dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so even the meds that they were giving him weren't the right kind of meds to use for somebody detoxing.
Mm,
But after talking to people about it, that could have caused it was pulmonary edema.
mm.
So he just went to sleep and he didn't wake up,
We're across the world,
right?
and, you get this news. So do you get on a plane right away? There's so much reeling in your head. I mean, I've never been in that situation, but I could only imagine with the thoughts,
Yeah.
but then you're in your favorite place. So yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, God took care of it before anybody knew what he was taking care of, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And at that time, they're like, "Okay, well, we can make you arrangements to get you home." And I'm like, "No." I go, "There's no purpose for me to go home. I wanna stay here." He had to go to autopsy. I didn't know how long that was gonna take. We were
Mhm.
already, 4 days into our trip.
How long was the trip gonna be total?
It's like 10 total with all the travel and
Mhm.
everything.
So is God meeting you in all these moments post, like, because 'cause you're touring the Holy Land, like, you're touring that area. Was there some spiritual experiences that were happening?
There was a lot. Like I said, the Sea of Galilee area is my very favorite because it's like Jesus walked those shores. Jesus was on
I
the
know.
Sea of
That
Galilee.
makes me cry.
He,
I know.
that's how I wanted to feel as close as possible. Even though I felt him, as close as skin to me, I wanted to walk where he walked. I wanted to experience what he experienced with the landscape, with the water, with everything else. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful time. When we got into Jerusalem, we had an unexpected trip to the Western Wall
Mhm.
and we were all in a group and we went up to the wall and my intent was to go and pray.
'Kay.
And so it's typical, a lot of people go up there and put their hands on the wall. So I went to put my hand on the wall and I just stopped and I'm like, not today, Lord, not today. So I turned around and I walked away.
Like, not today, you don't wanna pray?
No, I didn't want to talk to him.
You don't wanna talk to him?
I'm like, "Not today. Not gonna be doing this today." And so then it was a few days later and we were still in Jerusalem. We had a scheduled visit to the Western Wall, so I was a little bit more prepared. So I took a piece of paper in the hotel room and I wrote a prayer on it and I said, "Lord, you're gonna have to carry me through this because I cannot do it by myself." And the second time I went up to the wall and I went up to the wall, put my note there, and I said a little prayer. It wasn't much. It was just like, just help me.
Yeah, that's the best prayer when we have no prayer,
Yeah.
right? Like, we just need help.
Yeah, so it was just like, help me or something along those lines. And
Mhm.
then I literally heard in my soul him say, I am.
Inaudible.
He gave me his name. I am everything you need. I am your
Mhm.
provider, your comforter, your healer. I am everything you need right now. I just backed up and sat down in a chair and just like wept. I just
Well,
wept.
yeah, and when you weep, when there's that weeping, that's Holy Spirit. It's so deep that, like, it's not the ugly cry, like, it's just I can't even put it into words, but that weeping, it's a whole different thing, and it's very clear when you're weeping like that God is present.
It's holy.
Yes.
It's a holy moment.
Mhm.
And that just kind of like that moment was foundational to move forward.
Well, he has you in the Holy Land.
Yeah.
This tragedy has happened to your only son. And this is what a good God he is. This is how Romans 8:28 works out, right? And he's in the process of healing you to an extent, but he's saying, stand here on this foundation, me, because I am the great I am, before you even take that plane back. Because he's preparing you for what you're going to face when you're here.
Right.
Yeah.
But he's giving me everything, all of the aspects of his name, like whatever you need, I am.
Right.
So that was such a profound moment. I was like, okay, you and me, we're going to do this.
Did you feel sturdier coming out of that moment? Like you felt just on the rock, like foundational rock of Jesus? Like, is that how you felt?
I felt that, and I also felt held.
Yeah. Did you feel like I went through this whole sanctification process? Did you feel those moments happen as well when you're going through this? Like it's like a refining. You're definitely getting pruned, but it's a refining while you're grieving, and when all those emotions and then this work from the Lord is going on in the very depths of you. It's really hard for me to articulate it. I only know what I went through and experienced. But did you experience stuff like that, like where you're getting pruned and you're going through these like crazy changes that you never prayed for, never asked for, but then he's so very much there saying, I got you. And then that peace comes. Like, did you have those moments?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely, especially the peaceful moments.
Hmm.
When I got back to the States, I didn't want to walk out the doors of the airport
Mm,
because that meant accepting that I had a whole new life at that time.
right.
Because like you said, it was my only son. It was like, I have no more children.
Hmm.
Who am I? Where do I go from here? And all of that really didn't matter. It just mattered who I am in him and
Hmm.
watching him work in my life and
Right.
and pushing me into these rooms that had no clue I was going to be in these rooms, and grief was going to be such a prevalent
We
part
don't.
of my ministry.
And I mean, I know you are, facilitating that grief group. And, we don't ever we're not the grief girls, but God has assigned us to this. And there's huge heart there because you understand. I mean, everybody's grief journey is different. Like, we're not on the same timeline. The same things don't happen. I mean, different circumstances of, the passing and all that. But when we get to the part where God is saying, okay, look, now I'm going to teach you how to get through this. Those elements are like the same, like he does the same stuff, like shows you how loved you are, shows you that things weren't your fault. I mean, there's just a whole list. Like you couldn't have done anything more. We do absolutely everything for our loved ones. And, when they're in, circumstance, my case, my husband had cancer. I mean, I was sitting here doubting whether 6 opinions was enough or not. Did I do enough? Well, okay, yeah, I did. And I mean, you had all the resources, you gave all the resources to your son, right? To help and assist, and you had put that in God's hands. But, when you just having the heart for the brokenhearted, right? And grief before I went through it on this level, we don't go learn about it. We don't. Everything we learn about grief is when we're in it. We don't read a book. We don't go every single thing else. We probably strive to learn about it, but not grief. And so the education is lacking. And then, what's worse is people are directing people ways that aren't going to, make them feel good, like, don't call the medium yet. Don't, don't call the psychic. Like, no, the Lord, he already told us in the shortest verse ever in the Bible that Jesus wept. So he already said, look, this is how this is done. Knowing full well that Lazarus was going to be raised, Jesus still wept to show us that it's okay. And, it's inevitable. We're going to give grief, get grief, and we just don't talk about it. I mean, that's why podcasts like this is important. I'm just glad that, God got you through that. So as you're going to your life, the new life, I always call it the new life that we never asked for. 'Cause
Right.
for up until that point, for me, I was always asking for, the good, like, "Lord, like, I want this life. I wanna be a good mom. I wanna be a good wife," all these things. When I got to this, I was like, I don't know what this life is." So what happened from there?
Well, coming home, that was difficult. Like I
Mm,
said, not wanting to come out of the airport, not once those doors opened, that meant I had to accept what was my new life.
mhm,
And so then I told the Lord, I said, "Okay, we're gonna do this. I don't wanna get stuck in grief. I need to, on a healthy level, move through grief no matter what that looks like. I wanna do the hard things. I wanna
mm.
feel the hard things. I want to."
Well, I equate it to like an ocean. So, like, the undercurrent just drags you out to the deepest deep, and then it's like pounding waves, and it could be
Mhm.
calm, and all the emotions are flying at you. You don't even know what's up next. Like,
Right.
is it anger? Is it
Mhm.
regret? Is it shoulda, coulda, woulda? I mean, it's a emotional nightmare because you can't even try to control what's next. Like, we couldn't put it in order. Like, I mean, come on, Don, you're a lady that, we're overachievers. We want to just go down the list.
Mhm.
Okay, today I'd like to feel and then this, and
Mhm.
then we could feel 6 different emotions plus in one day.
Oh, easy.
Mhm.
Easy. And it's just you have to just, let yourself feel all of those emotions.
Right. Sit
You
in it.
Yeah, sit in it. You were talking about books earlier,
Mhm.
and it's really like feeling what a calculus book is and understanding that, but only or not understanding it, but only having a general math understanding in your head. So you need to get to the calculus level, but you only have a general math
Mm.
understanding. So you got to get there somehow. So it's going to take a lot of steps and a lot of just reading the Bible and just soaking up the
Right.
truths. And, there was a bit of time that I really had a hard time praying. I didn't know what to say. And even though the Holy Spirit,
But you weren't mad.
there were points that I got mad, but this was not when I was mad. This was more shock. I don't know what I'm going to do from here, but
Mm.
and just like I had a book of prayers that were scripture based, and I would just read those, until I can get my strength back to start praying again on my own because I
Mhm.
just didn't have it. It was just not in me. My mind was so busy, like looking for something that wasn't there and trying to solve a problem that's not solvable.
Right. There's such a finality. Like, other things we can try to fix, right? And we're moms, and, we're that. We're gonna try and fix it, especially before recovery. And this
Yeah.
is just something that there's just a finality, like, it's that's it. And, I had to come to grips with that. That was hard. It's not easy. It takes time, and you're on nobody else's time schedule. And, I mean, I just know that I didn't know what God was gonna do from day to day, but I could guarantee whatever growth he was gonna do was gonna be good. That's the one constant that I was like, "Okay, Lord, I don't know why I'm going through this so hard today, but I know you're good, even if
Yes.
I don't feel good." Yeah. And I mean,
Exactly.
sometimes it's just silence, but we got to be careful between solitude and isolation. And I know the book of Ecclesiastes like changed everything because it just gave me that, like, there's a time for everything. And that was what I didn't, I felt, I wouldn't say I wasn't angry. I don't know that there's just something in me that just wouldn't allow that. Just maybe unchurched and then finally found, what I was looking for in my Lord and Savior. But I would just like stop a moment and be like, I don't know. I just have to do what I know because I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Does that make sense?
Yes, total
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. I've always cared for this person, when my case, it was my hubby. I don't know what to do now. Who
And
am I gonna care for? What I'm supposed to Yeah, it was just, confusing. There was clarity in it, but then there was confusion. But I know the confusion just came from me, definitely not the Lord, because I think he tried to sit me down several times and then I would just go make myself busy doing the things
yeah.
that I knew. Yeah. So is that at that time, well, you were already in Celebrate Recovery, but you
Mhm.
just dig in farther to recovery. You have a toolbox, right?
I do.
Mhm.
And then, like, I'm still involved in a ministry called Hurting Moms Mending Hearts.
Yeah.
So
Tell me about that.
that is for, like, women whose, their hearts are broken by their children's choices, adult children,
Mm,
their sons or daughters, and so I was really involved in that and led some local groups, and I would write for the Facebook page,
mm.
and then
'Cause you
now
are a writer.
yeah, I am a writer.
Yeah.
And so now coming home after, losing my son, it's like, "Well, now what?" You know?
Mhm.
Who am I? And I can't speak to that platform anymore, but they graciously allowed me space once a week to write the grief corner.
Oh, that's
So,
awesome.
yeah, so I still write the grief corner. It's been well over 2 years. It's a
Is it
weekly
online? It's an
thing.
online publication?
It is, on the Facebook page of the
Oh,
Hurting
okay,
Moms
yeah, I'll
Mending
definitely
Hearts,
put
yeah.
that in the comments here, just, yeah, people can gain strength off of that for sure. It's not a private group, public group, or?
It's a public group,
Oh,
not a private group. So, yeah, it's the content is there. It's, the ministry still holds true to what the ministry is about, and it's about, moms' hearts that are broken from
mm,
their adult children's choices. So
right.
that can be anything,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
anything.
grief can be anything.
Yeah,
Right,
it
and we
can.
just we like to just well, it's not that we like, when we talk about it, we always talk about loss of a person, but I'm always going down the whole list, and then, when you've processed grief with God, like, at some moment, I'm just like, every single thing in this broken world gives us grief, in the losses, the job loss, the loss of dreams, and I've talked about this stuff over and over,
Mhm.
but there's so many things, but we may not be calling it grief,
Right.
right? Loss of a relationship, divorce, just so much. The job you didn't get. I don't know if I already said that, but or the job that's like flailing, like you're not doing as good as you think. I mean, you're grieving all that. And so the pet, right? There's
Yeah.
just a whole list. And that's why I think it's important that people understand where to go, for grief. And I just knew that it was only going to be my Lord and Savior, but we're used as conduit. So God's using you, right? You're leading, a grief group. You're involved in this online, they call it Grief Corner, right?
Yeah.
And then you also have, what is it that you have, like a for your son? Like it's an awareness.
Yeah, it's a mental health awareness
Mhm.
campaign that I started because I always told him he was my superhero. I go, because I would see him struggle so hard just to brush his teeth, and it's like, just get out of bed, just brush your teeth. It's easy for me to say. However, some days it's not going to happen if he's
Like a
in,
funk.
in depression and, in a manic situation or whatever. So I really told him over and over. So what I did was I started a superhero campaign, and the superhero campaign is for people who struggle with mental illness, and it just says it's a card or a sticker, and it says you're a superhero.
I
Um
believe that.
yeah.
I told my daughter that. I would be like, "You have superpowers. Like,
Yeah.
ADHD is not an affliction. Like, you have superpowers. Like, you can hyperfocus." Like, there's
Yep.
all this whole list that she can do. And so I really believe that. And so how is that, like, that's just encouraging other people, just,
Yeah,
helping
there's
them?
our local NAMI, has adopted that campaign and uses it in their groups as well as, some of the school districts around here. I
Oh,
work with their counseling divisions, and they have adopted the cards to use as well, cards
oh,
and
that's awesome.
stickers so that they can, because I want the positive message that, the negative messages that my son kept getting were all like, "You're not good enough. You'll never be
Mhm.
good enough. No, you're
Yeah.
just not worthy.
Not not
You're a bad kid." And those are
mm.
not true. None of those are
Right, and
true.
you of all people would understand how true that isn't.
Yeah,
Right, so that's
exactly.
why I said earlier, like, that's a cycle that's breaking, and then you being a part of this, handing out these cards, that could be breaking a cycle. You may never hear about it, right? But that could be breaking a cycle in that child's life. So,
And if it even helps one, you've heard that before.
for sure.
If it
Yeah.
just helps one, and maybe saves their lives or
Mhm.
maybe gives them more self-worth so that they're able to talk to somebody.
Mhm.
It does list the crisis line on the card, basically, that you're a superhero, your cape might be hidden, because
Mhm.
people wouldn't really understand. People don't understand always, but never give up. And then
Absolutely.
it has the crisis line. And it's a very colorful card.
Yeah, I like the logo. I like that. Yeah, it was done well. Yeah, I'll share that. Well, I'll share it in the comments too. So you get like, I mean, really, Dawn, I mean, I've watched you, I've been with you like
Mhm.
through this. I mean, you've always just been stoic and strong and just keep on going. And, you do have a servant's heart. And, I know that I can't even, we don't ever compare our griefs, but when it comes a child, it's not the natural order, right? The child isn't supposed to go before the parent. So I just want to say that I'm just so sorry, like for the things that you've gone through in your life. It saddens me, but then there's all this hope because you didn't let it destroy you, right? You clung to God and then He helped you through it. And yeah, and I've heard your testimony and there's just so much grief. You're still here, you're still smiling, and, that perseverance, the Lord that doesn't go unnoticed, that we stay strong. But the way we stay strong is that we're connected to a loving God who does declare that I am the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning, the end. And yeah, and so I know that this grief didn't stop here, with your son. The grief actually continued. And I mean, we realize like grief is just a part of life. I mean, I think after we've gone through some deep grief, we just look at life differently, right? And we do try to savor the moments that we have. We try to be present. We try not to get stuck. We try to remember well, all those things. Recently, you did suffer grief as well. Do you want to share? Do you feel comfortable sharing about that?
Sure.
Mm.
I wanted to say something before I got into that
Yeah.
uh, quickly, and that's just that every single season that I have found myself in, I have asked the Lord to please you.
Yes.
So He has used every single season and in some sort of ministry and allowed me to use my gifts and to
Lived
encourage.
experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and just to encourage people because we need to let people know they're not alone in their
Absolutely.
walks. That's it. I mean, it, and if somebody feels alone, that starts an isolation and that starts a whole thing. So I want to
Mhm.
encourage people just to reach out because there's no need to feel alone if you can get in those circles and stay in the circles and connect,
Well, we're
connect
made
with
for
others.
community.
We are.
But the thing is, with the type of background like that you had, community wasn't safe,
No,
right? But we learn that community is safe. But even in your case, what church community wasn't safe at one time. But then God just brought that full circle. And then we're like,
did.
yeah, and then we're like, well, I suppose. I mean, I was kind of like that. I suppose I can trust these people. They're acting trustworthy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, people are gonna fail us all the time.
I
It's
know.
just the
You
fact
trust
of
God to
yeah,
remove what needs to be removed and bring what needs to be brought.
and just connect,
Mhm.
just connect, that's it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we suffered a recent loss. It was a very shocking loss. In
Mhm.
December, my brother was diagnosed with cancer, and was when he was diagnosed, it was stage 4. They
Mm.
said 1 to 5 years, and he was fighting. He did chemo, he did radiation, it was in his liver and his
Mhm.
lungs and in his brain. So he got like a clean scan on his brain. So we were very optimistic.
Mhm.
And then he continued chemo and ended up in the hospital with breathing problems. And he had blood clots in his lungs.
Was that the chemo? 'Cause, did the chemo like, sometimes the chemo makes you sicker. Did they say that?
No, he was tolerating the chemo very well,
Mm,
but the type of cancer that he had, the small cell lung cancer, does cause clotting, so
mm,
it could have been that. I don't know,
right.
I don't know what caused the blood clots, but they were huge, and they did surgery and removed them.
Mhm.
And when they did that, they nicked one of his lungs, and then he got sicker, and his lungs just couldn't heal. And so he was on a ventilator and was removed from the ventilator because so see if he could support his own life, and he could not. And so
Sorry.
we had to say goodbye, and that was our baby brother. So that was, that left me and my older brother were reeling because again, another out of order death.
Right.
He's much younger than we are. He was always the precious younger one, the baby of the
Of
family.
course.
And so it was just very, very difficult loss.
Goodness.
And then it's just full circle moment. Now I'm ministering to my mom who lost a son. She has 5 other children, but she's experienced that heartache of losing a child. So I can just walk alongside her and let her know she's not alone in this and,
That's a
you
blessing
know,
for her. Like, that's a blessing
yeah,
that you're there. You understand, like, that's the thing about grief, like, so many don't understand because they haven't gone through it yet.
right,
But the ones that go through it, there's just this level of understanding, like, yeah, we quit sweating the small stuff like a long time ago. And like the worst of the worst, like this is the way I feel. And I probably like my emotions are bubbling up right now. But the worst of the worst has happened. Anything
right.
else isn't gonna even compare, right?
Right, and it switches your perspective, right? My
Mhm.
perspective is more heaven, more heaven, like, that's
Focused, yeah. Like, how much can I do before? Well, I'm like, is that what you mean? Like, how much I can?
no, it's like this what is in this world does not hold me anymore.
Right,
My total perspective is heavenly. That's where my
heavenly
son is,
bound.
that's where my
Mhm.
son is, where my dad is, that's where Jesus is.
Mhm.
And the people that I really, really love and, like, miss are in heaven, so it's like,
Mhm.
what is in this world doesn't hold me like it used to. Like, I used to
Right,
cling to, this was all that there was, but after my son passed, it's totally different. This is not all there is, this is not, things
right.
things don't have the same importance as they used to.
Yeah, the grief changes us forever. It's not, like, it's not a getting over. It's a how we learn to carry it. And not as a like, no,
Right,
I'm not saying a burdensome carry because God comes in and he lifts that load. But I'm saying that we still carry our loved one in our hearts. And that's not ever going away. Like, that is a part of our daily life for the rest of our life, what a fun memory that we had, or, just that moment, like, man, you're missing it. Like, it's like, forever. Roy's 52, and
right.
we didn't get to make any more memories. So, that's why pictures are important to me today. And not that they weren't before, but it just seems more like I always want to be capturing moments. And yeah, I get that. So now I mean, that comes full circle. You're helping your mama, but
Mhm.
your family's grieving again.
Yes.
And, yeah, I'm grateful that they have you, and I'm hoping that, like, God's shoulders are wide, like, our shoulders don't have to be. But even though when we're carrying our family, like, helping our family, it can feel a little heavy, but I know that you are deep-seated with the Lord and, you're gonna turn to Him at every juncture. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm just glad that you have that knowledge. Like, it's not even, I mean, it's funny to say, well, I'm glad. I'm just saying the knowledge of the tragedy that came gave you to where you could pour into others, and that's always we never asked for it. Not with this. No.
But it's really a gift, right? Grief
Hmm.
is really a gift, and I know that
Hmm.
sounds harsh to some,
It
but
doesn't
it's
sound to me.
true.
I mean, I named this whole thing Good Grief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is such a gift. I mean, I've never felt as close to the Lord. I mean, I've
Hmm.
always drawn near to him. He even says it, "Seek my face." and
Mhm.
how close can you be with somebody, seeking their face? It's just that when that happened and he gave me his name, it just things changed. Like it was like our relationship has been strong and a very tight,
Mhm.
intimate relationship, but then it got more intimate. Like,
Like, it's farther in, like, it's in the holy of hol like, you're in a very
yes.
holy place,
Uh-huh.
right? Yeah. Like, beyond the outer court, right?
Right.
Beyond the gate, you
Right.
know? And, he does that. I mean, he really does that, and, he's so close to those that cry out to him that just don't know what to do, and your heart is just open, like, I don't know, Lord, like, I'm glad you know, but I know nothing. And so I love that, that is the place that he's gotten you. And he's not done, Dawn. Like, he always grows us in different seasons. And yeah, sometimes they're hard, right? I mean, many times they're hard and we're just like, why do we have to go through this? But then we have to be reminded that we live in a broken world and we always have.
Very broken world.
Yeah, but man, that hope in Jesus is that's the big deal, right?
Yep, just like in First Thessalonians where it says that, we don't grieve like those of the world. We grieve with hope.
Right. Think about that. Like, I always think about, I felt dread only once in my life. Like, that just wasn't part of my, like, feelings. But I think about that one time that I felt it. And there's many people out there that feel that over and
Mm,
over again, or they feel there is no hope. There is no nothing. It's just a, like, abyss. But there is hope in Jesus. He does restore. It's not the same life, but he restores you to where he wants you to be, and you're walking in his purpose. So he's always gonna, that's why I said Romans 8:28, because he always brings it all, not just the good for the good, like it's the bad, the good for the good. And so I love that about the Lord. I mean, he's everything, right? The comfort, the peace. If anything that we can convey tonight on this podcast is that he is like the light, the way, the truth. He is the way that we can be better, like, emotionally, heart posture, spiritually, just in general in life, and get better, right?
if we cling to him and we seek him and we, spend that time with him and allow him to do the work, because some
Mhm.
people get to that point where they just don't want to allow him in any further.
Well, I think that the problem there is sometimes is that you just wanna keep the little pieces that you wanna keep,
Yeah.
and you just don't get to do that. Like,
Mhm.
you just have to go all in, or that peace without understanding is gonna be fleeting. For us, we know how to get back to that real quick. Like, even if we don't feel it for that, like, fleeting moment, we're like, "Wait a minute," and crack open the Bible, get in the Word, and then it comes back. So it wasn't him taking it from us because he already gave it to us. It's
Right.
the outer circumstances, right? But that's why the Bible says, we have to be content in all circumstances. And I can tell you that got really, really sharpened in grief, because I
Mhm.
didn't want to be content. I wasn't. Everything was topsy turvy. And so, but what I've learned about the Lord too, things flip upside down, unrecognizable. Then he flips them back, and you're just like, okay, I understand. There's clarity. I understand, and even if you have those seasons where you just need to sit still and learn more about him.
Especially love when,
Mm.
he's working, he's doing what he's doing, and then you don't understand and you
Mhm.
are a bit confused and, like you said, topsy-turvy, but then you're like,
Oh yeah, in
"Oh,
retrospect, hindsight is 2020. Yeah.
now I see."
You're like, I had to go through these things. So, like, even your trip to Israel, you knew some things, obviously, when things were happening there. But then when you look back, you're like, oh man, that was definitely God's timing. And he has perfect timing. I struggled with that for a little while. Like, if you have perfect timing, this was not perfect. But that was my
Right.
feelings. Right. I just know that it's important that we speak about grief. It's important that we get in community, that we have groups like the group that you facilitate at Celebrate Recovery, that we speak about it, because I think sometimes, well, one, I believe and I've heard, like, people, like, they don't know how well, one, they don't know how to deal with our grief, right?
Right.
And then when we bring it up, like, we can make them feel awkward or whatever, but I just keep on talking, like, it doesn't I'm just telling you, like, if you spend some time, I'm not angry, I'm not trying to make you feel anything, I'm just telling you some stories, about what God did, and that He's the one that delivered me from all of that. And it's always a work in progress. He delivers pieces. He's like, okay, I'm gonna help you on this one, right? You're not gonna feel angry about this. And then you move on, okay, you're not gonna feel depressed about this, and it's easy to be in all those spaces. But again, it's an intentional choice too, like to some degree, right? I've learned when you don't feel like it, you still get dressed, you suit and boot, and you still go walk out your day and get in the word, right? And you may not have felt it earlier, but as you walk out your day and you stay in that word, you will feel better. And yeah, that's the great I am, right?
That is.
So I just want to thank you for being on here and just being vulnerable, Dawn, and just, telling us your experience with our Lord and Savior, because that's where change happens. That's where hope lives. And I'm just thankful that you were brave and courageous enough to do this and just be here and talk about it. So I just look forward to future conversations. And with that, do you have any last parting, like just words that you want to give those that, are suffering through grief and just not in a good place? Like, what would your recommendation be?
Just sometimes you're gonna feel crazy and you're not. We talked a lot about community. If you get into a community and you have, other people that are able to speak to that,
Mm-hmm.
like we've talked about the Celebrate Recovery groups and the grief
Grief,
support group through
grief
there.
healing
Yeah.
choices.
Grief Healing Choices,
Mm-hmm.
and they're extremely beneficial just to be in the circle and just to listen and learn, and then you will hear that you're not crazy, that
Mm-hmm.
other people are experiencing the same thing that you're experiencing. May not look the same, but the emotions are the same, and as you hit these hard days, or you just have people to fall back on, because it's a very lonely, scary, weird road if you try to do it alone.
Mm-hmm.
uh, and it's not really comfortable to talk about it all the time. I mean, I get the oh no, not grief again, but that's my story, so I can't change that.
Right.
uh, but I
But you
asked
can use it for God's glory.
yes, I asked the Lord, you have to use this, you gave me this story, you have to use it.
Absolutely.
So, just get in the circles and get
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable in those circles, and you'll
Mm-hmm.
see the growth, and you'll feel the support and the love, and you'll see Jesus there.
For sure. That's where he meets us, right?
Mhm.
Well, thank you once again. And that is a wrap, guys. We just chatted it out for over an hour, and always in prayer for the listeners out there. And, share this video if you feel like it could help somebody. I'll put some links of resources down in the comments, and I'll see you back here next week. Peace out.